Disclaimer: the following video contains an organized and objectified remix music tier list from the Super Smash Bros. Series. It contains provoking thoughts and concerns from each remix in the games, all coming from this one random guy on the internet. Music is subjective, so not everyone's thoughts and lists might match with myself and others, so please take this into consideration. There will be anger, rage, and a tiny hint of salt, so watch at your own risk. If you do enjoy this video, however, go ahead and give it a like and share it amongst your peers. And why not go ahead and comment on why my tier list is so bad and why my choices were not to your liking. I would love to see what you have to say after watching this video. All things considered, I do really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen in on what I have to say in this video. Now, without further ado, make sure you are in a comfy position with your headphones on. It's time for me to showcase the best of the best remixes that the Super Smash Bros. Series has to offer to you all. Please enjoy the video. Finally, after many videos, we made it to what I consider the best of the best Smash remixes to ever be arranged. I mean, there are a few from past videos that I also consider fantastic in their own right, but these last remixes are perceived beyond my expectations on what a Smash remix should be as. And I feel like 150 remixes are quite the number to be considered as the best of the best. We're going to start things off with the Brawl remix of Butter Building, which was found on the first Kirby game, Kirby's Adventure on the Game Boy. This plays throughout the levels of Butter Building, and this remix also features the title theme at the start and Green Greens in the middle of the remix from Kirby's Dream Land, before going back to Butter Building. The remix uses a pop rock influenced style, using a synth for the sounds in the background to get that Kirby-esque flair from the original games. But the melody comes from a handoff of acoustic and electric guitars with electronic drums as the beat, while keeping the same tempo from the original Butter Building. This remix was also arranged by Jun Fukuda, who also did this single remix arrangement for the Smash series. When Brawl was released and trying to learn everything the game has to offer, I don't know how or why, but I always loved to listen to this remix a bunch. I kid you not that at one point in time, I really only wanted to listen to this remix alone that I turned every single song off on the Halberd stage and wanted to constantly play it. Now that I mention this, I only covered 2 out of the 9 Kirby remixes that were made in Brawl. Man, these Kirby Brawl remixes are just super amazing, and I didn't even realize it until now. I was just really enamored by the acoustic and electric guitar here. I thought it was super unique and awesome that the guitar's playing during the melody with the wacky synth sounds playing throughout. It really was something that I wasn't expecting to enjoy, and yet I really did. So this one holds a special Kirby place in my heart. Aside from the Butter Building music, I also think that the Green Greens Easter egg at the middle is cute too. Little references like these make these Smash remixes so amazing. But now listening to it without my 12-year-old bias aside, I think it is a bit flat compared to the style that Fukuda had going for it. Making it have that orchestra for like 10 seconds when playing that Green Greens expert, then continuing on to the Butter Building sections is a bit weird and off-putting to me now that I listened to it recently. The style was already awesome, but the change up for musical choices could be great for some people who want to have more styles in the music. But not for me personally. Now that I'm thinking about it, this remix could go a bit lower. But honestly, I believe rank 150 for the Brawl version of Butter Building is the perfect starting point for this section of the amazing arrangements I've yet to cover for this tier list. And of course, there will be more Fire Emblem remixes for this top 150. What's funny is that this will be the only Fire Emblem remix to talk about for today. Oh, but don't you worry, plenty more remixes for this series will come in future videos. I know everybody just loves these remixes from the Fire Emblem franchise. Right? Okay, back on topic. We have Winning Road Roy's Hope from the Japan-exclusive Fire Emblem game The Binding Blade on the Game Boy Advance. This plays whenever victory is all but assured, basically meaning Roy's army has routed all enemies in a map but the boss, and this plays during this section of the game. Not only in The Binding Blade, but this also plays in the first Western localization Fire Emblem game, aptly named The Blazing Sword, when Eliwood's army has victory in their grasp as well, considering that both games come from the same continent, albeit in a different timeline. This instrumentation is plainly an orchestrated style, with what you can expect from a live orchestra to be playing, with an added piano into the ending parts of the piece. Which I gotta say, if that piano wasn't added in there, I could have very well put this remix fairly low on the tier list, right next to the Beyond Distant Skies Roy's Departure remix I said a few videos back. Believe it or not, I was also originally going to have this remix in my top 100 remix picks, just from that ending alone with the piano. Holy shit, I just love this ending so much, and this remix is just so beautifully done all throughout. I don't know why, I just really like it a lot. Although, I decided not to put it in that higher up section. This original track plays near the end of the chapters when fighting is just about to finish, so of course it's not that great when a battle is currently playing in a Smash game. Even then, when this remix is actually playing in the game, I still find it enjoyable and get a good fight sensation when it does play. Just another one of those weird feelings you get from these abnormal tracks that don't originally play during something intense. Can't really give out any of a weirder explanation than that. But yeah, I think this remix is pretty neat, and I'm proud to put it here with one of my favorite remixes in Smash. Something that I would have never guessed to be this high on my tier list are Animal Crossing remixes. 3 slid their way here in my top 150 Smash remixes, and I ain't gonna lie, they are actually really good that I couldn't pass them up to be here on my tier list. This is the ultimate remix of the title theme for the GameCube game Animal Crossing. As you would expect, this plays on the title screen when booting up the game. You know, I also never would have expected title theme arrangements to be so high up on the tier list too, but here we are. There just has to be some exceptions made, of course. This remix vastly increases the tempo from the original song, but keeping the style more or less, featuring an acoustic guitar, violin, and electric organ as the main melody, with various percussion instruments in the background, such as bongos, a triangle, and a drum set. In the second half of the remix, a banjo is now featured for an improvised solo, and there couldn't be an ultimate remix without a key raise at the end, before looping back at the start. I was actually pretty stunned at the beginning of Ultimate when I first heard this remix, and thinking to myself that it's just really good, plain and simple as that. What I was really surprised about was that Ace, of all composers, arranged this remix, vastly different from the other remixes and composed music that they have done in the past. I'm not going to be saying much about this remix going well in a Smash fight. Currently, I think that almost every single remix up to this point on my tier list goes well in and out of Smash, and this remix is no exception. However, I think that the music style, while it feels like how Animal Crossing is portrayed, should have been maybe something new, like what was sounded previously, like in the Happy Home Designer remix. But maybe that isn't such a good idea in the end, since I think that the Happy Home Designer remix is a tad bit worse than this remix in my opinion, which hopefully people can accept my placement on that front. This remix is great, but I wouldn't consider it to be the best of the best Animal Crossing remixes. That comes more later down the line. Trust me on this one, folks. Coming to our first and only Skyward Sword remix is Ballad of the Goddess from, well, Skyward Sword, first released on the Nintendo Wii. This theme plays throughout the game, but most prominently plays in the intro of the game, as well as various cutscenes and in promotional trailers. The middle of the piece features a theme of the recurring villain of the game, Girahim, and this plays when Link fights him in battle. The remix takes on an orchestral rock style with the electric guitar taking center stage as its main melody, while an orchestra is in the background playing the same as it was in the original Ballad of the Goddess. And then Girahim's theme gives out that hard rock style, with a guitar and drum set before looping back. This is a solid remix adaptation to this great original theme. I'm not the biggest Skyward Sword enjoyer in the world, and I thought the original theme was overplayed to all hell, but I think this style of music with the electric guitars made it so much better in my book. It's also a bit faster paced as well, giving it that oomph that it deserves in Smash fights. Also reminds me of that Skyloft stage in Hyrule Warriors, and that version of the theme is also another great rendition too. Even if I think that version from Hyrule Warriors is just a tad bit better. That's really all I have to say about this one, unfortunately. Just a solid Smash remix from an iconic theme of the Zelda franchise, for better or for worse. Can't really give it too much credit since it just adds the electric guitar and drum set to an orchestra piece and made it a bit faster and called it a day. But it's still really good, so I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt here. Sad to say that there are only very few Melee remixes left on the tier list, but on the positive side, this will be the only one to cover for quite a while. Right now, we're going to be talking about Being Friends, found on the first game of the Mother trilogy, Earthbound Beginnings for the NES. 2 tracks are played in this remix. The first is the same name as the title, Being Friends, when N10 has a party member accompanying him throughout the journey. And then the second being the 8 Melodies, when the party collects a piece of the 8 Melodies throughout the game, and in turn is the main theme for the game as well. Gotta always include that music piece into these Mother remixes. Before looping back to the beginning, however, a small excerpt of the enemy encounter theme can be heard. And I have to say is, why hasn't the Mother series in Smash never included a fucking battle theme is beyond me. There is, however, one exception in Smash which... I'll get to that later. Much later. You all know the one that I'm talking about. Anyways, this is an orchestral remix compressed with a MIDI like some of the tracks in Melee were produced, so no surprise there. A synth playing the main melody of Being Friends, and woodwind and brass instruments make up for the background, with a slight hint of electric guitar and drums, while the 8 Melodies theme acts like a very quiet music box into a more symphonic piece with a harp and choir. This is a very touching and heartfelt piece that only Shoko Sakai can definitely accomplish at such lengths. Dude is a legend. Being Friends has to be my favorite section of the remix for obvious reasons. It's very vibrant and matches the original game's music almost to near perfection. 8 Melodies does that as well, of course, but since it's so soft, it doesn't really fit into that intense one-on-one fighting style that competitive Smash goes for. And I'm left disheartened since this is such a great piece. A lot of people agree this is an amazing remix, but I think you and I both know that this should be deserving of this rank on the tier list. Just be grateful I'm not trashing it like the others, since I do have a soft spot for this remix in my heart. Nostalgia brings out the best in a person. Sometimes.
Name is Mike, come on, let's roll, go karaoke. Get up on the stage and sing a little ditty for me. No, not me, I'm a karaoke machine. I got 2 mics. mic's on my head and you're singing to me. Yeah, don't you wanna karaoke? Off-key, no, not me, I'm a karaoke machine. My name is Mike and tonight...
To tell you guys the truth, I'm a little saddened that I'm putting this remix here somewhat low, but I'm happy that I was able to put it here at my top 150. This is Mike's song that first appeared on the DS game, WarioWare Touched. This is heard when the player picks out Mike's microgame set from the game, and this plays through the intro cutscene with the accompanying lyrics that plays throughout said intro. Speaking of the lyrics, Terry Lauber and James Cowan are featured with the English version, while the Japanese version is handled by Jun Fukuda, the same composer who arranged the Brawl remix of Butter Building, which is definitely something to say the least, with sound bites from the GHM sound team for the Japanese version only. This is the only remix in Smash Bros. To feature a poppin' 50s rock and roll style, with a piano, electric and bass guitar, organ, and drum sets. I do find this remix very fun and vibrant. Definitely love it when this tune plays in a game of Smash. Always brings a smile to my face every time. It's strange, since it doesn't really give out that gratifying feeling of a competitive track to play during a game. But seriously, it just makes a match feel that much better when it does. Might be a bit biased take and a controversial inclusion to even put this remix up so high on this tier list, but I really don't care. It's just so much more different than the other remixes, and that Masafumi Takada did an amazing job on the composition. It's so colorful and outgoing that I can't help but love it a lot. Of course, Terry Lauber and James Cowan did a fantastic job bringing the lyrics to life for this track to get that old school style going. I have other things to say about the Japanese version, however. More hurtful things. The music is still great in that version, but the lyrics are just not good at all. The main vocalist just sings the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and holy shit, it is so annoying. I'm not going to torture you guys on that god-awful piece by putting that version in this video. And if I had the option, I would probably put the Japanese version of Mike's song as one of the worst Smash remixes. Possibly even worse than Now or Never, which is crazy to think about. I kinda get it that the Japanese version tried to make it sound like the original DS track, making the vocalist sound just like the original with the updated music. But seriously, it just really made it super ear-piercingly terrible. But hey, at least the English version is a slapping good time. Now, I await the sub-enjoyers to defend the Japanese version of this remix. Betcha they can't.
Name is Mike, come on, let's roll karaoke. Get up on the stage and sing a little ditty for me.
Coming to yet another Yuzo Koshiro classic remix, it's Opening Bombing Mission from the best Final Fantasy game, allegedly, Final Fantasy VII from the PlayStation 1. This plays on the very first opening moments of the game, where Cloud and the members of Avalanche stormed a Sector 1 reactor in Midgar. This remix resembles its rendition from the newly released Final Fantasy VII Remake on the PlayStation 4, albeit with different instruments and approaches, such as a synth bass being used in the Smash remix. I can assure you all that there are two different compositions from each other. The Smash remix takes a very simplistic approach that similarly replicates the original piece from the PlayStation 1, with the same tempo and composition, just updated with live orchestra. Considering both the Smash remix and the newly released remake versions of Bombing Mission, I still think that the Smash remix is very good and harkens back to one of gaming's most memorable moments. And of course, Yuzo Koshiro does an amazing job at recreating the set piece, especially those opening moments leading up to the big opening with that snare drum. Ugh, so goddamn cool. This remix is actually the longest arranged remix in all of Smash Bros., clocking in at 3 minutes and 46 seconds. a very impressive feat, and I do enjoy every second of this. However, while I do think this is still a fantastic remix, some parts are a bit too soft and droned out. Like, I would very much love the piece to be hyped up all the way through, but I can understand why Koshiro wanted to recreate this already stunning masterpiece, and keep it how it was originally done from the PlayStation 1 version, so I can't argue with that. Just not very original from my understanding. I mean, I never played Final Fantasy VII, so take this opinion what you will, but I understand its influence on the uprise of gaming, so credit where credit is due. Besides the small and soft portions, it is still a fantastic piece, and I find myself hyped up to play it in Smash, especially in the beginning moments. But the live orchestra can only go so far with this song being too original from its first debut, bringing it to this rank for me on the tier list. Next up, the first of many Mega Man remixes that we have to cover today. This is Crash Man's stage from Mega Man 2, and this obviously plays out when Mega Man goes through the stage where Crash Man's at to fight and gain his power. This remix is quite something, with an airy electronic trance-inspired style that has a faster tempo from the original that uses a synthesizer and electronic drums. So, when first listening to this remix when Ultimate came out, I was just so baffled and awestruck on what I was even listening to in the first place. This is just so vastly different from what I always hear in a normal Smash remix that I came to appreciate it more and more every time I had the pleasure to listen to this. Those opening notes set the tone for this remix, and then it just captivates you with its eerie music. Well, is this the best remix to fight in a game of Smash? Absolutely not, especially when the other Mega Man Smash remixes are just that amazing. But there's just something about those electronic drums that keep that beat going, and it is really cool to listen to in a game of Smash personally. I know this remix isn't very popular or well known either. I would expect to see this remix very low on a lot of other people's tier lists, but the way that it was handled with its somewhat depressing tone but upbeat nature really got a hold of me and never let me go ever since. And considering the fact that after the shit Nobuko Toda made in Ultimate with Bomb and Fireman stage, I count this as one of his very few blessings. Now we're on to some very obscure gaming remixes. Next is Tunnel Scene from the Game Boy game X. You can hear this track when the player is warped from the tunnel that takes you to the main game. This remix takes a techno spin from the original, with a synthesizer with generally the same tempo and composition. With that being said, I probably shouldn't rank this remix as high as I should, given that this is a one-to-one recreation from the original piece. But you know, just like with Crash Man's stage, there's just something about this remix is just so captivating that I can't help but enjoy, especially when this remix is played in a game of Smash. It is very fast-paced, has a great melody, and it just keeps itself going through general synthesizer greatness. My only real complaint I have with this one is that it only has more of a minute of runtime, so it can get tiresome listening to the same pieces in long drawn-out matches in Smash, and that it was originally played in Lilac Cruise and Brawl 2. Since this is depicted as a remix from the other category, you can't listen to this remix on Lilac Cruise anymore. And man, this remix fits so well on that stage in Brawl and Smash 4. Really sad to not see that anymore. Oh, wait, those were 2 complaints. Oops. But in all seriousness, I just really enjoyed this remix a lot for what it is. Just something about it just makes me want to listen to it and gets that blood flowing with its vibrant nature. Yusuke Takahama is a master when it comes to synthesizer remixes that just keeps players engaged, and I'm all for it when it comes to him and his wacky remixes that takes players for a ride. Probably the same thing as Crashman's stage is that it probably shouldn't be too high objectively, but hey, I think this remix does a great job for what it is, and that's all you can expect from greatness. And speaking of greatness, the amazing Noriyuki Iwadare blesses us with another swanky remix. This time the second light plane remix to discuss on the tier list, which first came from the Super NES game Pilot Wings. Just like before, this theme is played when the player flies the light plane machine in the game. This remix is a bit similar to the Smash 4 remix, where it takes a jazzy style of interpretation from the original. This time, this ultimate remix is more prominent with the saxophone, brass, and synthesizers, while being backed with percussion instruments such as a tambourine, bongos, shakers, and of course the drum set. The remix is much faster than the original and the other Light Plane Smash remixes as well, making it a perfect upbeat track to listen to while playing the game, especially on the Pilot Wings stage. It is really the perfect remix for that stage. The saxophone here has a fantastic solo in the middle of the remix, and I like how both that saxophone and the synthesizer play the melodies in different sections, with the brass kinda taking the backseat this time around. I super enjoy the light atmosphere that this piece gives out, and I like the little details of a plane revving up at the beginning, and when it flies by after those solos are finished from the middle to the end. No one but Iwadare to make such a cool remix. Unfortunately, I really don't think that this remix is his best work. Even if it's really awesome to hear, we've kinda already heard this before from Smash 4's interpretation of Light Plane. Personal preference, but I actually prefer the Smash 4 version more than this one. Even if this ultimate remix has better music quality than that, I will admit. Oh, and we are talking about the vocal mix Light Plane track, and not that horrendous remix from my first video. Not to get confused from absolute spectacle to horrendous piece of shit. I think I butchered this remix to not give it a higher placement than it should deserve, quite honestly. But with the style that we already have heard in Smash 4, I would have liked to see something entirely different from the ultimate remix of Light Plane. I say this, but yet to cover a few other ultimate remixes that used their original remixes styles that made it better, most notably versus Ridley in Ultimate, but I'll get to all of those in due time. Okay. It's time to discuss my quote-unquote meme pick for this top 150. This is Type B from everyone's favorite puzzle series, Tetris. This original track plays when picking Type B for the game's music selection when starting up a game of Tetris. This remix plays like a Russian folk style of music featuring, and I know I'm going to get this butchered, a balalaika, which is a Russian-made acoustic guitar. Super cool bringing in a Russian-made instrument from a game that was originally made in Russia, with Russian-inspired music. Very Russian indeed. Vocal chanting are also featured in this remix, which are actually taken from the original Game Boy version of this theme, Super cool detail. I know normally people wouldn't want to listen to this remix firsthand. It is very different in comparison to the other Smash remixes that were already featured. But that's the charm of it and why it is so cool to me. Taking in those Russian-inspired roots and putting it into a Smash remix is neat, and musically does this very well. The vocal chanting is a bit funny, but also meshes well with that guitar that I won't name again. It's really fun to listen to something different for a change. I also like in certain sections that the music reverts itself back to how it is somewhat similar to how it plays in the original Game Boy adaptation. Just more fast-paced and with that added percussion. Kinda like a generational gap, but not really. I just think it's neat as all. So how does this play in a game of Smash? Honestly, I think it holds itself very well. Definitely not the most in-depth and melts your ears in beautiful music fashion, but if you listen to it in-game, I bet you can get a feeling of its lighthearted intensity. There are much better remixes to play in a competitive Smash setting for sure, and I really wish I could bring this one just a tad bit higher personally. But I think this fits perfectly in this spot of the tier list. I don't know why, but Tetris Type B is a wonder to behold, and I will not take any slander towards it. Also, I realized that Masafumi Takada arranged this remix. His musical styles vary in many degrees. Dude is just as talented as the many other arrangers listed from this tier list, and should be respected as such. Next up on the Mega Man Remix Rundown, we have Darkman's stage, appearing in Mega Man 5 on the NES. Unlike the previous Robot Masters, Darkman is one of the final bosses of the game that impersonates Proto Man, with the start of the remix using an off-key whistle that signifies Proto Man's appearance. This theme gets played traversing one of the rooms in the final fortress to confront Darkman. This remix mostly plays the room leading up to that confrontation, but has a few other themes to go with it too, such as the Get Weapon and title screen theme for the game nearing the end of the remix, before the loop back. You know, instead of Darkman's stage being the title, it should have been called the Mega Man 5 medley, but I can understand that it is called Darkman's stage, being that the remix does mostly play during that section, and those other themes are small portions. But I think calling it a medley instead would have been a better fit for the title personally. Just like with the other Mega Man remixes, it has an electronic style which comprises of the usual synthesizer, but also has distinct chiptune music and sound effects from the original game in here, as well as harkening back to what it originally sounded like in a way. Touches like that are awesome, especially when the music itself is very fast-paced and heavy, which this remix is no stranger to. I do like the use of the Proto Man whistle as well in a few sections of the remix. Really like how it incorporates it since Darkman did impersonate Proto Man. The little Easter eggs in these Smash Bros. Remixes are just so cool. I don't think this remix is the best, however, given that the sole electronic style is just too Mega Man based and not very original. You will hear later that the other Mega Man remixes that I have higher up on this tier list have more distinct musical styles and electronic style music, which stands out much more prominently in my opinion. This remix is still solid though, no complaints on playing this one from time to time in games, but I just find the other Mega Man remixes much more captivating to my attention. going to be covering more old school music remixes. Next up, we have the Brawl remix of Ice Climber. These series of themes comes from the NES game with the same name that uses a jazzy rendition of the bonus stage theme first, followed by a fast-paced rock and roll version of the same theme, then ending it off with the normal stage theme before looping back to the beginning for the bonus stage theme once again. Also, a cute little opening where a person has a short quip about rocking the mountain. Makes it seem like you're going to explore a vast mountain which the game makes you want to be at. And I find it a neat detail that adds a nice touch to an already cool remix. Other than that, the unique styles of music that it has are very great in my opinion. I've said before that I'm not too much of a big fan of different music styles in other remixes that have too much going for it. But in this case, I really enjoy the styles given here. Going from jazzy to rock to relaxed makes it an enjoyable ride. Not to mention that when playing this track on the summit stage with hazards on, the music syncs up with what is happening in the background. The jazzy rendition is when you are on the top of the mountain, then when it breaks to rock and roll music transitions when the iceberg slides down the mountain, then finishing off with the relaxing but fluttering version of the stage theme when the iceberg drifts out to sea before going back to the loop when the iceberg suddenly becomes a mountain again because, video game shenanigans I guess. Love when the stages for Smash games do this, and unfortunately they rarely do. Also unfortunate that this will be the last remix that I discussed at this dynamic pairing between stage and remix music in Smash. Would be super awesome if other Smash games in the future do this type of thing every once in a while. But I guess I'm asking a bit too much at this point, I suppose. Other than that, the remix itself is fine, very fast paced and quite quaint in a way with lots of musical instruments and styles all throughout. Maybe the stage theme for the last transition is a bit long, but it's still really good, so I'll keep it how it is. I might want to bring this remix a bit higher, but I believe the other Smash remixes keep this one in check for this rank here, even if it really does exceed other remixes' expectations. Maybe in another revision I could return here with a much higher rank than need be, but for now, let's move on. We have another SNK remix to talk about. This time we are covering the first of two Samurai Showdown remixes that were arranged in Smash, this one being called Gaia. This plays whenever the player fights against the character Earthquake in the arcade mode, as well as his stage theme. While the music from the remix plays very identical to the original theme, practically it's like a one-to-one recreation to it more or less. Same tempo, same instruments, same pretty much everything in between. This remix just turns up the musical quality up to 11, which is pretty fantastic in its own right. However, there is a more distinct guitar solo and a brief traditional Japanese wind instrument, which I will not be naming again, that is put into this remix, which is very nice and definitely needed to make up that lack of originality a little more appealing. And yeah, that's pretty much on what I have to say about this remix, surprisingly. It's a great hard rock piece that's perfect for a good smashing time. Nothing much else to be said here, and sometimes that's okay. You don't need to discuss everything in a very structural essay all the time. Sometimes you just gotta sit back and let the music do the talking. And I just quite like the remix as just that. Plain and simple, really. I think it's safe to talk about here that these hard rock cover remixes are great to listen to in a game of Smash, but they don't really necessarily drive that originality aspect that I crave so much to be a very suitable and original Smash remix. Just to get that out of the way. I kinda just have to put it here for the sake of the other remixes getting that spotlight that they very well deserve. But for me saying that, they are still so very awesome to listen to, just like this remix you're listening to now. Still a fine and suitable music piece to be had here if you're looking for some one-on-one blood-pumping action. Well, we've come across the second and last Punch-Out remix that the Smash series has to offer. Honestly, both of these remixes from this series are very well done, but obviously it is time to talk about my favorite of the two personally. This is Jogging and Countdown, two songs that were featured in the NES game Punch-Out. First song is Jogging, and can be heard when Little Mac defeats all boxers from any given circuit from the game, and can be seen training with his trainer, Doc Lewis, to get him ready for the next circuit. The second section is Countdown, and plays where Little Mac loses all of his health, and the player has to continuously mash the A button to bring Little Mac back on its feet to continue the match. This remix features a live orchestra all throughout the piece, and is very dramatic all the way through from start to finish, with really heavy percussion from the snare and bass drum, as well as cymbals and clappers to bring a very fulfilling tension piece to this remix. Now, I know what I already said about live orchestrated remix music in Smash not being my most favorites. It really doesn't appeal to me since they are not very heavy-inducing pieces to fight in. But in this case for Jogging and Countdown, this is one of the very few exceptions where it hits all the right marks to me to make it very great to listen to while playing in Smash. The blood-pumping excitement is in the air for this remix, and it really shows all the way through, and I love every second of it. Finally, an orchestra piece that goes along with the action. After listening for some time now, I don't think it really is that grand of an orchestrated piece, however. I think that there are far better orchestrated remixes in Smash that have much better production value compared to this, even with remixes I already discussed from many videos ago. But this remix at least gets me going to play in a match of Smash, and that's all the more reasons I can get behind when putting this remix at this spot of the tier list. Might as well cover another remix that will be its last for its respective series, this one from Pac-Man. Remember what I said way back when at my very first video after listing both of the other Pac-Man remixes at the way bottom of my tier list, and that I said that the last Pac-Man remix you wouldn't see for a while? Well, I wasn't wrong that this third and last Pac-Man remix was near the top. Cause man, this one is just an amazing remix that takes some really creative liberties from the rest of the slop that was put at the end of the tier list. Anyways, this remix is called Pac-Man's Park and Block Town, which are two levels found in the game Pac-Mania. First plays Pac-Man's Park, which is the second level of the game, and then Block Town, which is the first level in the game, not the other way around. This remix also includes an intermission music and losing a life sound that was featured in this game as well, unlike in the previous variants found in the original Pac-Man game. The instrumentation style for this remix is very rock synth oriented, with a synth and electric guitar playing for the majority of the melody, with added guitars and a drum set in the background. This style of music is very much up my alley, and caters very well to a round of Smash in that regard as well. I honestly don't really have much to say other than this is just a very solid remix overall. It's very upbeat, heavy-inducing, and a bit whimsical at the same time, having this weird Pac-Man sounding synth going along with the rock music. It's also a bit funny but charming in a way, which I also find it very fitting for the essence of Pac-Man as a whole, which makes sense since, you know, this is a Pac-Man remix. Kinda sad that this series didn't really get any more remixes in Ultimate, but maybe that was a good thing since the other old school Namco remixes were actually very solid and they all delivered their old school qualities to those specific melodies, with varying styles of music, which I really respect a lot. If only the other Pac-Man remixes that are at the way bottom of my tier list were the same and not subjected to old crap fests. But I guess that it just wasn't meant to be. From one old school stylized remix to another, we have the mysterious Murasame Castle Medley. This game only appeared in Japan on the Famicom and never released overseas. The first theme represented here is the game's start theme when the player starts the game, then transitions to the theme of the castle town, followed by the mysterious castle theme, next the bonus stage, then inside the castle theme, and finally ending it to the game over jingle before looping back to the castle town theme. The music represented here is a jazzy eccentric style with a prominent trumpet and saxophone, with hints of that one Japanese windpipe instrument that I won't say because I'll incorrectly butcher the name yet again. Those instruments are playing a melody throughout the remix, with an acoustic and bass guitar and a drum set accompany them in the background. There are also a bit of vocals throughout the remix that you will definitely need headphones if you can spot them. This remix is loud and brash and I absolutely adore it. Never played the original game due to it never appearing out of Japan, so I didn't have any feelings of nostalgia toward it. But damn, if Nintendo ever remade this game for the newer generation, I would be the first to play it day one. If, of course, they ever get the style of music in it. This is a super unique remix that frankly doesn't get enough attention, sadly. It is great and perfect for a Smash battle, I believe, so I recommend you giving this a listen to when playing Smash and hear from what I'm putting down in this video. But other than that, just another stylistic tune from an underappreciated series. You'd think that since I put almost all of Yoko Shimomura's amazing remix arrangements from Smash outside of the high tier placements that you'd never see one here. Well, you'd best be mistaken because I still have a few of her arrangements for my top 150. Even if I don't think her remixes fit the somewhat hardcore aesthetic of Smash's competitive nature, I still think some Yoko remixes really hit their stride on being outstanding pieces of music, even in a Smash game such as this one. This is Route 10 from the Generation 5 Pokemon titles, Black and White, and appears when the player goes through Route 10 of the game. The original instrumentation of this piece was a soothing and tranquil Latin-style piece with an accordion, guitars, and a piano. This remix kinda amps up the same piece with a more fast-paced style, with the same instrumentations, but instead of the accordion, the violin is the main star of the show here. Actually, both accordion and violin get to be main ensembles, both interjecting at different parts of the melody. What I also find neat is at the middle portion of the piece, the guitar and piano play the bridge, and then all four musical instruments come together beautifully at the ending portion of the song, before the loop back to the beginning. Like, goddamn Shimomura, why the hell do you always have to play such tear-jerkingly good shit for video game music? We seriously do not deserve her in the slightest. No wonder she got a Lifetime Achievement Award for her music direction in video games. Even though this remix really lacks the originality department since this remix uses the same instruments from the original piece, and it really isn't the absolute best at being great fight music for Smash. But it's really not the worst either. I've had a few awesome moments that this remix plays in the background, and it was still a great adrenaline rush at times. Still not the best in that regard to some other remixes that I've yet to go over, but I won't badger this remix to be the absolute worst to listen to if you want some good spicy music in the background with your game sessions. Guess that is a good segue on why I'm putting this remix here on this spot. I know it's not the best to be put up high on the pedestal, but I still think that this remix is worthy of being put as a high tier remix for my tier list. If you think otherwise, go watch someone else I guess, see if I care. Kentaro Ishizaka, the man, the myth, and the legend, returns today for another remix in this section of the video. And he still has a few more remixes to cover in my top 150. He isn't a legend, just for show folks. We now have the Starwolf remix from Brawl to cover. As you probably already know, this is the theme where Team Star Fox encounters Team Starwolf throughout the various missions in the game, and plays throughout the dogfight between the two. This original theme had an orchestral arrangement just like with many of the other songs from the original game. Well, the Smash remix pretty much has the same exact orchestral style and tempo to the original, just through updated instrumentation without the use of a synth. Yeah, pretty much from what I said in my other statements, this is a very one-to-one rendition of the original theme to Smash Remix. I won't go over again on why I have my feelings set in with these specific remixes. But guys, this seriously was just an amazing remix from my childhood that I had to put this up here in my rankings. I get that this is pretty much the exact same thing using the same instruments and tempo and all. The lack of originality this has is truly heart-wrenching. But listening to this in a fight in Smash is just so phenomenal to listen to. Definitely one of the top picks for me to put in as one of the best Star Fox orchestral remixes to play in Smash. Actually, this is the best Star Fox orchestral remix to play in Smash as a whole, in my opinion. I don't know why, but once I heard this song back when I got Brawl, I just couldn't stop playing it for some reason. The amazing melody and upbeat tempo was a good factor, but that mesmerizing snare drum throughout the whole soundtrack just got my head bopping in a good way. It even has its very own solo. Such a good feeling when a percussionist like myself just only hears one of the many percussion instruments taking the spotlight for once. So yeah, the nostalgia factor really hits hard for me with this remix. Just has a certain type of chokehold on me that I can't get away from. And frankly, I really don't want it to ever let me go. Now coming to our second of two Metal Slug remixes in Smash, this one being the Assault theme from the first three Metal Slug games. This song plays all throughout these games in various levels and boss fights. There are actually a lot of times where this theme plays in these games, so I won't go through all of them. You'll basically hear this song during a playthrough of your own, trust me on that. The Smash remix similarly plays the theme from its inception, only adding a few key details, such as using an actual orchestra, minor flourishes with an updated synthesizer, and adding in the main theme from the original Metal Slug game before looping back to the beginning of this remix. While yes, this is definitely not a very original remix since it is basically using the same tempo and aesthetic from its arcade counterpart, I think that it really holds itself well in a game of Smash. The vocal male chanting in the background of a few parts and that trumpet solo in the middle of the piece is just so cool to me, and it fits perfectly with that fighting tension that I love so much. The main orchestra is no slouch either. String instruments, drum set, and even the bongos go really hard here, and I just like every second this remix plays. I understand that the originality for this remix is a big hindrance from my originality criteria I put up for myself when going into this project, and I really should have put this remix much lower in that regard. But seriously, if I'm having a great time when listening to this remix while playing in Smash, and also the fact that this remix plays really well out of fights, I think I can make a few exceptions. In fact, I think this will be one of the last few remixes on this tier list that will have this sort of originality problem, so I won't go talking about that for much longer. So yeah, I think this remix is just an overall great time if you like this sort of musical style that the Metal Slug series is known for. Another thing is that the arranger for this remix is Akihiko Ishikawa, who also goes by his performance name, Linda Al Q, is his first and only remix he produced for the Smash series. Honestly, a pretty cool remix to just one and done on. Respect. Got another F-Zero remix for you all today. This is White Land from the original F-Zero game on the Super NES. While this remix does cover White Land, which is aptly named White Land 1 in the original game, the Smash remix actually covers White Land 2 in certain parts of this remix as well, making this a collaboration between these two distinct songs. It honestly makes sense to only call this just White Land instead of the White Land 1 or 2, since it is using both of them for this remix. Or maybe even calling this the White Land Medley as well. Anyways, this remix is a stylized synth rock composition with a heavy use of synths, bass guitar, and drum set for the background, while an electric guitar plays in both melodies of the two White Land songs throughout the entirety of this remix. This music piece definitely screams F-Zero to me, and if there was a White Land track back on the X and GX games, the music would definitely fit that White Land aesthetic perfectly to me. I really enjoy this remix a lot, and will get me in a good mood to play in a match of Smash all throughout. However, I think it might be a bit too stylized with the synths. I understand it harkens back on the original F-Zero game, and the newer games of X and GX don't really cover a lot of that synth well, and more focusing on their hard rock attributes. But this is just a minor nitpick of mine, and I won't let this remix cost a lot of points for that reason alone. It's actually a bit crazy. This is the first of 3 Brawl remixes from the F-Zero series that I've covered here on the tier list. And what's even more crazy is that I already went through all of the other F-Zero remixes that were made from the other Smash games. I might have a super huge nostalgia bias from these F-Zero Brawl remixes. But who am I kidding, these Brawl remixes are just top tier to me, and they don't even compare to their other F-Zero music brethren, truth be told. And I think a lot of people may agree to those same feelings as well. Only 2 more F-Zero remixes left on this tier list, and both are not even close to being mentioned yet. Stay tuned for them. Almost done for today's video. This time we are going through the last remix mentioned from the Splatoon series, being Splat Attack. Wow, we definitely went through a lot of these last remixes for some series in this video. We are nearing the end of the tier list, so it was bound to happen sooner or later. Back on topic, Splat Attack is featured on the first Splatoon game that came out on the Wii U. This frequently plays during various multiplayer battles through the Turf War game mode, and this music piece is definitely the most prominent and popular music piece out of the whole Splatoon lineup, so this track getting a remix in Smash was meant to happen whether you like it or not. And surprise surprise, I actually really like this remix a lot if you couldn't already tell from this placement on the tier list. The original track had a very punk rock style which fit well in that sort of funky Splatoon aesthetic had for the game, and frankly the entire Splatoon series has going for it. The Smash remix, on the other hand, ditched the punk rock feel with a more jazzy, big band brass style with a heavy use of those loud brass horns with an electric and bass guitar as well as a drum set playing in the background, for that more eccentric and uppity vibe. During the ending portion of the remix, a section from Now or Never is heard and the tempo of the remix drastically goes faster to match up that higher intensity feeling of the last minute of battle. Wow, this is actually an amazing rendition of Now or Never being put into this remix. I wonder what it would sound like if someone made an entire Smash remix from that Oh, right, yeah. Best not to mention that one. Anyways, this remix is more in line to the original, but with a different style of music, and it really works great here. The brass band music style is amazing, and it actually fits Splatoon to a T, surprisingly. This is a perfect example of what I'm looking for when comparing the Smash remix to the original music piece, being that the musical style is very different, but still keeps intact of that general feeling from the original series. I'm actually not opposed to the original punk rock version of this music piece either. I think both the original and remix here are great renditions, and I'm happy that they are both featured in Smash Ultimate. Too bad Seascape did not get that same treatment. you know, I'm ready for the hate on where I'm putting this remix at. Let's just get this one over with. This is Megalovania in the indie cult classic game Undertale, released in 2015. This theme is played when the playable character fights Sans near the end of the game, if the player decides to go through with the genocide route, killing the population of the underground. This remix uses an original chiptune style of music, with an added orchestral rock feel to make it more fleshed out, with strings and brass instruments and an added electric guitar solo near the end of the remix before looping back to the beginning. And speaking about that guitar solo, it incorporates the themes of Heartache and Bone Trussell as well. The remix arranger is Toby Fox, who also made the entirety of Undertale, including its music, and is also the second Western composer to be featured in a Smash game. He was really close to being the first Western composer, but we all know who made it there instead, which I will get to later. Going to start off with me saying that I have never played Undertale in my whole gaming career. Well, I mean, I've tried to play it, but those opening sections of the game didn't really do it for me and never really got back to it since. I know it is a very popular game and I'm going to get castrated for my whack-ass opinions. I've got to admit though, this is a super cool remix regardless of me not playing the original game. The way that the remix starts out with the original Megalovania usually plays with the chiptune style, then quickly changes pace to the orchestra rock set piece while still retaining the chiptune sound effects are fucking cool, man. And that guitar solo at the end is the cherry on top. This remix has a lot of style, and it should be noted as such. Toby Fox is an amazing composer for what it's worth, and a huge honor to be put into a game series that he loves so much. I will give it up to the man for making a great remix that caters to the fans of his games, and does what he does best. I might be a bit too harsh for putting a remix on this spot for the tier list, but you know, I just have far more better memories with these future remixes that I've yet to cover. And I just think that might be a bit better than Megalovania. I'm interested to see where people put this remix at if they happen to make a tier list similar to mine. I believe 95% of you all will put it in their top 100s, 50s, 10s, hell, even possibly as their number one Smash remix of all time. Every Smash fan is just too predictable it hurts. Last remix of the day to go over, and of course I have to go with something hard. Very hard, man. Okay, I'm being a little bit too uncomfortable here, I'll stop with that nonsense now. This is Hard Man stage from the NES game Mega Man 3, and plays when Mega Man has to traverse the level to fight against Hard Man. Comparing to the original track, which uses that old school style of chiptune music that some of you know, and somewhat love, I think. This remix instead uses an orchestral rock style from an orchestra, with an electric guitar playing the main melody of the song, and added in an acoustic guitar and drum set performing in the background. I never really knew this remix was that amazing from a first listen back in 2018. Well, I always thought that this remix was quite good, but it never really piqued my interest when going through with this project. I have a newfound love and appreciation for this remix than I originally did all those years ago. I mean, there were a whopping 17 new remixes added into Ultimate for the Mega Man franchise, so obviously people have their favorite Mega Man remix, but I feel like this one gets left in the dust. Quite a lot, in fact. I do have a favorite Mega Man remix as well, but unfortunately it's not this one. But seriously, this remix should not be slept on one bit. The orchestra and the electric guitar here are fan-fucking-tastic in this piece, backing each other up in parts of the melody without one drowning out the other. And not to mention that amazing ending piece with a key raise added on to intensify itself that it really means business. This remix really does go hard, man. Oh shit, that wasn't intentional, my fault. But yeah, I really think that you should give this remix a chance to listen to by itself, or by playing in the game of Smash. I don't think you'll be disappointed by the epicness of it all after listening to it, and hoping that you will also find a newfound appreciation for it too. Howdy everyone, end of the video spiel now, but I hope everyone enjoyed this video today. As I said previously in my intro, we are at the top 150 Smash remixes for the video series. I do highly consider each and every one of these remixes to be the pinnacle of how a great Smash remix should be. Engaging, fast-paced, amazing to listen to in and out of the game, and not that annoying to many. I know I've already put in some popular remixes at the lower end of my tier list in past videos, but the majority of these remixes in my top 150 are pretty popular for the general consensus, so I hope there won't be too much hate for me putting these remixes in these insane spots for my tier list. But I will admit there will still be some really weird decisions in these next few ranks that are probably going to roll some heads. And I'm preparing myself for them, cause there will be ranks where it might seem I'm just a little bit crazy for putting them in that spot. So stay tuned. Well, I think it's time for another dumb question for today. This time I want to ask, what is your favorite video game of all time? If anybody says their favorite video game is from any of the Smash Bros. Series, I'm just going to think you're a shill with too much time on your hands. There has to be that one amazing video game experience that you go like, damn, this is the best thing I've ever witnessed, kind of experience. To me, it was way back in Christmas of 2007 when my parents gifted me a Nintendo Wii with Super Mario Galaxy. I've stated in my first video in the series actually that this game was my favorite video game of all time. Just playing this with its amazing levels, presentation, controls, story, content, and of course the fantastic music, baby, blew my fucking 12-year-old mind at the time. It was just, chef's kiss. I don't think anything could just compete with it. Even the recent Super Mario Odyssey, while a phenomenal game in its own right, Galaxy was just truly something special that I don't think anything can top or replicate it. Well, that should be all for now. Thanks again for watching this video, and see you next time.